My recently rebuilt Saab 900 Turbo does not have functioning air conditioning. Today, we're going to be replacing a few parts and hopefully fixing that. We have a few parts we're going to be replacing today. First off, we have our new receiver dryer, new expansion valve. Here's our old AC lines that were just pulled out for the sake of being able to run the car until I got this issue resolved. We also have a bunch of new O-rings, so we're going to try to replace every O-ring in this system, as well as installing the AC compressor, and at the end we'll hopefully get it charged up and have it ready to run. First thing I want to tackle here is to begin replacing all these O-rings. So there's two right here, and I have a O-ring kit from Harbor Freight specifically made for AC systems with a ton of different sizes, and thankfully the biggest one seems to fit in there just about perfectly. Honestly, this O-ring, besides being completely flat, which you obviously don't want, the material on it is in pretty decent shape.
Do you want to stay the night? 'Cause I don't want to be alone. It's been weighing on my mind for too long, too long. Do you want to save a life?
The belt is now on. I have it around the compressor, around the crankshaft down there, and also around the tensioner. So now I have to put some tension in this. So how that works is there's a long bolt right here. We just need to tighten this nut and it'll compress it essentially, or put more tension on it, I should say, until it's tight. And then after that, we'll have to tie up the wiring harness. The way you can make sure it's tight is the belt won't turn more than a quarter turn, or about 90 degrees. So I'd say that's on there pretty good. Let's next tackle our expansion valve, which is behind this black cover here. So one of these lines has already been disconnected. Of course, if you're doing AC work, make sure the system is properly evacuated before you start doing this. You don't want to release that freon into the air. But we need to pop off this line here, and there's a few torques around here, and I think the black cover should come off after that.
And I'm still running from my demons.
That broke loose pretty easily.
I'm still hiding all my secrets. And I just need someone I believe in. Will you wait for me while I'm still healing?
We're kind of at a stopping point on the expansion valve, and I say that because I've gotten all these pulled off. The only thing is where the expansion valve mounts to the evaporator core. That fitting is just seized on there. I've hit it with PB Blaster. I've tried vice grips, different things to try and avoid bending these lines, but I just think I need to let this sit, let the PB Blaster soak in, and hopefully that'll be enough to break this loose. So I guess without further ado, let's move forward to this. I was a bit worried here for a second that this new receiver dryer would not work for a few reasons. One, you look at it, you can see the brackets in the same place. That's great. And there's three different fittings we need to worry about. There's one here, there's one for this sensor, and there's one on this side. You can see at first glance, well, none of these quite look the same. I think this is definitely some sort of universal dryer, which makes sense. Thankfully though, I was able to figure out how to get it to work. I was very concerned at first. This is just a little screw, like maybe some sort of adapter it looks like, or plug that you can undo, and now it matches the other side. As with the opposite side over here, you pull this off and now you have another input as well. Now when I broke this one loose right here, air started to come out, so I'm not sure what's going on with that, if I'm being 100% honest. But this sensor will also unscrew as well, so we'll put that in there with a new O-ring. Given how many of these O-rings I have in this kit, this one that I just undid for the screw for the sensor looks a little flat. I assume these are all like one-time use, so I'm just gonna replace it with another one that fits from my kit. I almost forgot there's an O-ring on the line that's still in the car that I believe goes to the condenser. I'm gonna grab the O-ring off of that and replace it as well. I am so excited. After a quick lunch break, letting the PB Blaster set in, I finally got this thing broken loose. I had a zip tie on here to hopefully help prevent this from rotating. You can see it's a little bit chewed up, but oh yeah, it broke loose. That old O-ring in there does not look like it was doing much sealing either. It's completely flat, so let's get that one pulled out and replaced. The only difference I'm seeing between these two is the new one is slightly bigger, which I don't think is really going to matter. And secondly, this sensor right here that comes off of the top is different on the old one. It looks a little different. I think it'll still probably work just the same. So let's get this installed. This new little line here came with a new O-ring, which is great. And we have our new O-ring for this piece, and then we'll worry about the O-ring for this a little bit later. And then no seal needed for this.
I surrender. There's no more falling down. I've hit the ground. So I surrender. And I surrender.
Last thing we need to install in the car is this main AC line connects to the compressor, to the evaporator or the parts we were just messing with, and then also down near the condenser on this end way over here. So there's two O-rings, one right here, and there actually, I assume there should be one here. It wasn't on there. It might have fallen off when it got removed, but we're gonna put one on there too.
You don't owe me anything, but I believe that you can show me all the things that I've been needing. I'm just hoping you give me.
This line has been reinstalled. Not too bad, just tight getting down in there to where it connects. I had to move the horn out of the way right there, but not bad besides that. So fingers crossed, we should be able to give it a charge now and have some cold air. It has been about 6 months since any progress has been made on the AC system of the car for a variety of reasons. I've just had so much else going on with this thing, but we're back at it to finish this video finally. And well, we have one more issue we actually need to solve. So I took this car to my buddy Eric's house last weekend, hoping to get the AC system finally charged. And well, as we quickly learned, believe it or not, these 35-year-old AC lines are leaking and no good. So essentially what he did is filled the system with nitrogen, pressure tested it, and when we could hear air kind of creaking out, we sprayed around to see where that was coming from. Turns out it was, of course, both of these AC lines. Thankfully, you can still get the AC lines for this car new. One of them being the main line that comes out of the compressor. One goes down into here, the other goes all the way down into the condenser down there. And we have our second line, which goes from here down to here. So this one I actually was able to buy brand new. You can see we have new Schrader valves, new metal lines, everything completely brand new. This one, however, I could still buy new, but nowhere in the United States. So what I did instead was found a shop here locally that actually rebuilds AC lines. They did this for 80 bucks. New crimps, new rubber hose. You can also see they actually put a new end on this one right here, and then welded where they needed to right there. So this line is like Frankenstein, half new, half old, but We're gonna have to replace these brand new O-rings on all these lines. So without further ado, let's get into it. To access where this end line plugs in to the car, we actually need to take the front bumper off, I'm thinking, because this line, you can see the silver line right there. There's this plastic shield hiding it. And then even with that off, the bumper is just kind of in the way. So I think we'll pop the bumper off real quick and give us a chance to replace any other O-rings we might have missed. Looks like we have a T25 holding this little shield on.
And I just need someone I believe in. Will you wait for me while I'm still healing? You know what to say every time I start to slip away.
Now because this other little line here, which goes to the dryer, is really the only O-ring that hasn't been replaced and I'm down here, I'm going to loosen this and get an O-ring on that one. You'll have to excuse my ignorance here, but this line is actually welded as far as I can tell. There's no O-ring. It doesn't actually pull out like all the other lines. So I guess we're not replacing any O-ring on that one. We'll just get it tightened back down. One difference I am noticing between the old line and new line is the thickness. So here's our original line, and there's the new line on the bottom. You can see how much thicker this is. Main reason why that makes a difference is the fitment into that, guide piece for the compressor just doesn't fit as cleanly as before. And then this little plastic piece is now a bit too big, but still does its job. I'm gonna throw the front bumper on real quick and let's get this thing charged and finally have some working AC.
2 hours later.
Back for round 2 of charging, new lines and everything in. Pressure testing it at 350 PSI. It's been here for 15 minutes and hasn't lost any pressure. So hopefully now means it'll hold a charge. So we're pulling vacuum out of the system now. Make sure everything's out of there one last step before we charge it.
Doing this the non-proper way.
Eric's gonna be putting about an ounce of hag oil into the system now. Doing the best we can with what we have, and we'll begin shooting some R134 into it. So as far as the capacity, from what we found, R12 capacity for this system is 2.2 pounds. There's 2 conversion methods that we found. One says to just multiply that by 0.75 to get the R134 amount. And another says to multiply by 0.9 and then subtract 0.25. So we got within a 1/10 for both those results, and the median of both of those is about 1.7 pounds. So that's about what we're going to be putting in of our 134. 134A tank is hooked up. Eric has a convenient scale here, so we can literally measure the exact amount of weight that's being pulled out of this and going into the system. All right, so we have the temperature set to cold, fan on max. We're gonna see the compressor probably kick on. I assume it is because the hoses are shaking. So you can see the clutch engaging and disengaging, which essentially means that the AC compressor is working as it should, which is a big relief, but there's something else in the system, Eric was saying, that is essentially telling the compressor not to turn on. So what we're going to do, since I'm here, is just have him charge the system regardless, and then I'll have to do some more diagnosing and figure out why this won't turn on when I tell it to. So clutch is spinning through our jerry rig here, but it's working. Now we're just gonna need to let it suck more Freon into the system. We're almost up to 13 ounces, so just under halfway, and already, oh, she's blowing ice cold. Oh yeah, that's feeling good. What just happened? One of my lines blow?
Damn, we were right there too.
Right at the limit. The hard line?
Oh no, it's this. Right here.
Oh.
It's that.
Right at that connection there. Huh? Turns out that line right there seems to have been our culprit, so just pulled out the old O-ring, gonna put a new one on. Going with one that's just a hair thicker, hoping that will solve our issue. Oh, so frustrating, we were right at the end. So we're gonna let this thing go just a little bit more. Eric brought up an interesting point about pressures and the temperature, and watching the PSI on the gauge up there. It's at about 225 right now. The blowout last time was right at about 350, right when he was about to pull it out. Right when we were at about the 27 ounce mark, which is what we wanted. So we're gonna probably shut it off here. I mean, the AC this is ice cold. I don't unfortunately have a thermometer to stick in there, but I mean, it's cold. You'll just have to take my word for it. It's kind of freezing my hand. AC system is all charged and good to go. We think why the blowout happened right at the 1.7 pound mark was because of the cooler temperature. Depending on the ambient temperature, which was about 65 degrees, obviously that impacts pressure changes. So we're thinking it was just overfilled and the pressure got too high and that caused the blowout. So that's why the second go around, we didn't fill it to quite the 1.7 pounds. You all might recall me saying earlier in the video, one difference I am noticing between the old line and new line is the thickness. Main reason where that makes a difference is the fitment into that, guide piece for the compressor just doesn't fit as cleanly as before. So I did notice that this line is rubbing against the underside of this bracket here because it is thinner, which is creating a slow leak already, I think. So what I'm going to do is have to find some hose to wrap around this or something to help protect it. It doesn't seem to be leaking normally, only leaking if it's bent at a certain angle. But that is a big problem. Another big problem as well is I need to figure out why this clutch does not engage when I have the AC button on in the car. So in the video you saw we were able to just manually jump it to the battery to force it to turn on. So there's a wide variety of things that could cause that. I'm going to have to diagnose it off camera, but this video has taken 6 months to make. I'm glad it's finally done. If you guys enjoyed the video, please give a thumbs up. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and I'll see y'all next time.
Take it easy.